Hey, good morning, HDC family. Man, so glad to get to be with you here today. I remember Christmas morning of my freshman year of college vividly. I was so excited to get back into a tradition that felt familiar after a year that had brought a lot of change and transition to my life. I was excited just to get back to something familiar. And for my family, the first thing that we do on Christmas morning is we open stockings. And so we were going youngest to oldest, started with my sisters, got to me. The first thing I pulled out of my stockings, and it was a pair of nail clippers. And I thought, that's weird. Kind of useful, but weird. I'll let it slide. And so I set it down and we continued on. But as we continued on with stockings that day, I started to notice a theme. The next one was floss, followed by toothbrush, followed by deodorant and shampoo. And by the end of stockings, it was like, somebody thinks I have a problem. And really quickly it went from, that's useful, to like, whoa, I'm getting put on blast this morning by somebody. And if you've done life for any amount of time, you know what it's like to get a gift that you don't want. It's just part of life. We aim to give people gifts that they're gonna want and be excited about, but we just miss the mark from time to time. It's part of life, getting gifts that we don't want. And as we grow up, we learn how to handle that a little bit better on Christmas Day. Hopefully in your adult life, you are not in tears on Christmas morning when you get something that you're not super excited about. We learn to mature a little bit and hide the disappointment from our face, maybe let a little passive-aggressive comment slide, but that's about it. But as a kid, man, there's no hiding it, right? As a kid, there is just no hiding the disappointment on your face. I mean, you thought it was an action figure. You rip that thing open and it's Buzz Lightyear chonies. I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen to you. You are in tears. This is terrible, morning ruined. And though we may have learned how to handle disappointing gifts or unwanted gifts better on Christmas morning, very few of us handle unwanted gifts the rest of the year very well. Unwanted gifts like a marriage that's much harder than we signed up for. Unwanted gifts like a really difficult season of parenting where it feels like you are at war with your teenager. Unwanted gifts like financial stress or challenges that actually impact the way you're able to celebrate the holidays as a family. Unwanted gifts like a diagnosis that just changes the trajectory of your life. Those things we're not nearly as good at hiding our disappointment. Those things we're not nearly as good at masking the feelings that we have. We tend to run away and hide when those things come our way. And today, as we continue on in this series called The Gift, we are looking at how different people received the gift of Jesus. And today we're looking at the gift of Jesus through Joseph's eyes. And to Joseph, Jesus isn't just socks and underwear. Jesus is a full-blown life disaster. He wants nothing to do with him. It is ruining Joseph's life. And so we pick up the story in Matthew chapter 1 as we seek to learn from Joseph's example how we might better handle unwanted gifts that God brings into our life. Look at this. Matthew chapter 1, starting in verse 18. This is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph. But before they came together, before they were married, living in the same house and sexually intimate, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. In verse 18, Matthew tells us, the reader, that Mary was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. But it's worth noting that was unknown to Joseph, okay? So that wasn't on his radar. That might very well be the story she was selling, but he certainly wasn't believing it, okay? So in his eyes, she's committed adultery. And let's try to get into Joe's shoes for a second here, okay? If you remember from last week, if you were here as we looked at the gift of Jesus through Mary's eyes, Mary is probably somewhere between 13 and 15 years old. Joseph, probably somewhere between 13 and 18 years old. They are in a legal contract between their two families where they are in a stage of relationship called betrothal. And betrothal was on the level of marriage, and it lasted a year before they would live together and then become sexually intimate and be man and wife. But they were on that level, and to dissolve this contract would require divorce at this stage legally. That's how committed this relationship was. And it says that Mary was found to be pregnant. What that's likely referring to is when she's coming back from her visit to her cousin Elizabeth. Once Mary found out she was going to be pregnant, she went off to visit with her cousin Elizabeth and came back 3 months later. So as Mary is coming back from her trip to see Elizabeth, she is coming back in her second trimester of pregnancy and can no longer hide the fact that she is pregnant. And so it's become obvious to Joseph and obvious to the community that this woman who he is betrothed to be married to is coming back from a 3-month absence pregnant. And the shame for Joseph, the shame for his family. You see, the wedding, what was gonna happen, what they were building towards, was a week-long festivity at his parents' house that was going to be a celebration in their whole community of just a climactic moment for their son and their family. It was a moment that brought a lot of honor to the family. It was a big deal. And now, as she's coming back pregnant, the whole thing blows up. Invites have already been sent out. Money has been spent. There is just deep disappointment. Disappointment for Joseph's family, disappointment for Joseph as he was preparing to be married in just a matter of months, and now he's having to consider the worst and figure out what's gonna happen here instead. I mean, the disappointment is everywhere. Joseph isn't saying, praise be to God for Jesus. He's saying, this is ruining my life.